Hey, today we're going to talk about, our autonomic nervous system and kind of how it comes into play with our health and our decision making. So, just to simplify everything, our autonomic nervous system is what was thought to be a part of our brain that we can't control. That's involved in, impulse, and that's involved in all the automatic processes of our body. So, we're talking about like your heartbeat, your breathing, all the things that we do without thinking about necessarily. Right? That's why it's called autonomic. It's interesting now because we find out that you actually can influence that system quite a bit. But just to give you an idea of kind of how much this can affect your life, we're just going to talk about a couple different parts of the brain. So we have the frontal cortex of the brain that's involved in executive functioning and delaying gratification. All right, so why is that important? When we aren't able to delay gratification, that can lead to things like eating disorders or things like addiction. And that's because we aren't able to set out a plan and see the end goal of that plan and be able to base our decision making on gratification that's coming somewhere down the line, right? Rather than I need to be gratified right now. For example, a lot of the times we don't do things that are negative because we know they can affect our plan down the line, right? We don't want to get in trouble, and that would affect our end game. That would affect our lifestyle, our livelihood. So a lot of times, people that have difficulty with executive functioning and the reasoning, they tend to make decisions emotionally and on the spur of the moment. Like the decisions to, say, get in a fight, for instance, even though it may not be a good idea, or the decision to have a bowl of ice cream knowing that it's not going to help you towards your goal, but maybe you're feeling really bad that day and you just need something to cheer you up. So executive functioning will reason that out and say, I know I'm feeling hurt right now, but I need to find a more positive way to release the sadness rather than go towards that bowl of ice cream. We also have something called the adrenal gland that's involved in releasing different hormones based on how we're feeling and our emotion. So when when basically we're stressed out and we have those stress hormones being released constantly in our body, that shuts off our frontal cortex, our ability to reason. So when you're stressed out, you're far more likely to make a decision that's going to go against your long-term game plan than you are if you are calm and collected. And that makes a huge difference when we're talking about, our health is just it's basically a culmination of all the things that we're doing on a minute-to-minute, second-to-second, day-to-day basis. So every decision that we make can either hurt or help us towards our goal. So we always want to be ideally thinking clearly. So it's very important for us to become aware of the times that we can tend to get into this fight or flight or into this anxiety-based or stress-based system, and have some ways that we can work through that and kind of calm down our bodies so we're able to think a little bit more clear and make decisions that are based off of our overall outcome. So a couple things we can do to influence that system. One is just breathing. So our body has a response to when we're stressed out, whether that's emotional stress, whether that's actual something actually happened, you're hurt physically, or even stress in relationships, or something happened that doesn't really go with how you planned out the day, like somebody cuts you off, or you get in a fender bender, whatever it might be. Our heart rate elevates, our breathing becomes more rapid the more stressed we are. And if you just think about the times that you're angry and the times that you're upset, pay attention to how your body feels. It tends to be more clenched. Things tend to be more. Your heart tends to be racing. You tend to be more tunnel visioned, and that's your body's response trying to put you in a better mode to survive a situation. So it basically shuts off everything that has to do with any type of long-term plan, because then you're basically sending a signal to your body saying that you're threatened. So you wouldn't necessarily need the ability to sit and think clearly if you're actually immediately being threatened. So this system is actually meant to be beneficial. So say, you were actually being attacked for someone, your body's putting all its resources into identifying what is threatening you, as well as giving your body a jolt of energy that it knows it can't sustain, but enough to where hopefully you can get out of that situation in a short amount of time. So it's meant to be activated in short spurts, but because our perceived threat now in the modern world can be a lot of different things, because we actually lack real physical threats, we lack real threats to our life on a day-to-day basis. Typically, we fill that role with other things if we're not aware of what we're doing. So, we activate our threatened system. When we get cut off, or when we get yelled at, or when someone does something rude to us in the grocery store. That system gets activated. Now, we can get to a point where that system's chronically activated and you're stressed out a lot over a long period of time. That can affect your health for obvious reasons. It's not good to be having that kind of elevated blood pressure, heart rate, and respiration for long amounts of time. But just like we mentioned before with the function of your brain, you're not reasoning 100% when you're stressed out. So those Snicker commercials are right. You're not yourself when you're hungry, right? You're not yourself when you're stressed out. So breathing, we can influence the breathing, and that kind of is almost like a shortcut or a pathway into that system. And because if we're breathing slowly and we're breathing controlled and we're breathing with awareness, our body responds by saying, "Oh, if we're able to breathe calm and collected and for this amount of time, we must be okay," and it helps to bring it back down to normal levels. In the beginning, this can actually be very challenging to do for people because it's something that we don't do often, is consciously breathe. But as you start to get used to it, you really can influence kind of where you're at, mentally and emotionally. And you can also become more resilient in that you tend to not get flustered by things as much. You tend to be more aware of the triggers of what's typically sets you off, and you can respond to them differently. And you can understand that things will happen. Negative things happen to everyone fairly regularly, and it's kind of your outlook and your perception of that situation that has more of an effect than the actual situation. So it's important that we're understanding and we're not perceiving these things as being a threat in any way. Another thing is just having simple gratitude and understanding kind of how lucky you are to be where you're at in life, or to be alive and to be able to have freedoms and opportunities to do different things and to have the ability to change your situation, because that's not something that is always promised to everyone, and it's definitely not something that we necessarily deserve. So being grateful for what we have and understanding that it's not the end of the world when something small happens. In the grand scheme of things, we're very lucky. Helps us to keep our head on straight and helps to avoid that frustration, especially if you're having it frequently. So, hopefully you can take a couple of these strategies and start to use them during the day when you are feeling flustered or stressed out. And that's really going to help you, one, make the right decisions towards your health and wellness goals, as well as just protect your body for any undue stress that comes from all the processes activated in that fight or flight system, puts you in a more restful state that helps improve circulation, body awareness, kinesthetic awareness, as well as digestion and immune system function. So it's only good things that come from this. So in your spare time, go ahead and practice some of this, breathing slow and consciously, as well as being more grateful throughout the day with what you have, rather than creating issues and thinking about what you don't. So until next time, have a good one. Thanks for joining.